calling I Am a Nerd. We're having a lot of fun here today. Hopefully the virtual user group meeting will be just as much fun as Mary Jo and I are having getting ready for it. We've got, if you hear a big crash, call 911 and tell them that we need help at 1800 Denison in Dundee, because they are taking down huge trees within 10 feet of our building, which is also my 145-year-old farmhouse. And so we're hoping that they are not going to disrupt our virtual user group meeting. But hey, if they do, who cares? We'll make do. We'll get by. But today we're going to talk about column layouts. Mary Jo is going to explain what they are, why you care about them, and how to set them differently than the way they come out of the box. And I'm going to talk about the new Find and Replace feature, show you how it works, and talk about certain instances where you may want to use it. But before that, let's take a look here at the GoToWebinar control panel. This is the control panel, and this is a button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right. And if you click that button, you'll be able to get rid of this control panel. It'll slide right off the right side of your screen. And that you may want to do because this control panel may be covering up my screen. And of course, you want to see absolutely everything that's going on my screen. So that's how you do that. You click this button here that looks like arrows pointing to the right. That causes this to scroll out of the way. And when you do that, this changes into a button that looks more like arrows pointing to the left, which means that if you click it again, it will bring this back into focus. And most of you know that if you're shy and you have a question, you'll want to bring that back into focus because this is where you would type that question. And if you type your question and hit the send button, don't forget to hit the send button. Leanne, our brave, because she's sitting next to the window where the trees are being cut down, and humble, because she's trying not to make a big deal out of it, moderator. I better say that again. I had too much interruption. Our brave and humble moderator, Leanne, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt either Mary Jo or myself at the perfect time. She will ask your question on your behalf, and we will answer it. Now, if you have continued questions as we're answering, or we're not headed in the right direction, or something comes up that you want to kind of branch off on, keep typing here. Keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will continue to ask your questions on your behalf. Now, if you're feeling not so shy, you can also press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. And if you do that, Leanne, our humble and brave moderator, will recognize that you have a question just like she would have if you typed it, but instead of reading your question on your behalf, she will unmute your microphone and let you ask your own damn question. So that line of communication, that unmuted microphone, will remain open until we are done answering your question. So don't hesitate to jump right back in and ask those follow-up questions or head us off in the right direction if we start to get off track. Okay? So without any further ado, I'm going to hit the magic buttons. Those are the ones that are on your keyboard that say magic next to them. And I'm going to make sure I'm getting into the right PracticeMaster. Here I am. And Mary Jo, you take it away and tell us all about column layouts.
Okay. So out of the box, when we see our columns and all of our screens in PracticeMaster, there's default column layouts already set up. So in this case, we've got our client ID, client name, contact name, name search, so on. And you can obviously click on any of these column headers, client name, and sort by those and so on. But what if I wanted to see the matter description? It's not on here, and I have to actually scroll way over here to actually start to get into some other fields. Or maybe it's a phone number or an email or something like that that's not showing on this initial view, and I have to scroll over. There's actually column layouts that you can set up. So, and you can change these on every single screen that we have. A lot of people know, okay, well, I can change it on my client screen, but you can also change it on any screen that has a column, that has columns in it. So we'll start with the client information. This one right now already has one that somebody has set up for client information that they've changed, and I'm just going to flip through it so you can see that now that has changed to have my client name, work description, so I know which the matter description it's talking about, my phone number, my mobile phone, and email address. These are the main fields that you really want to see every time you come in. Now, you might have some customization that you've added some fields. Maybe you have a statute date, and you want the statute date to show out here. Whatever that would be, if it's in the client file and you want to see it over here, You can change these around however you want. So let's take a look at how to actually create our own from scratch and then actually how to modify one. So you have a Manage Column Layouts here. So if I come into my Manage Column Layouts, it's going to list all of the column layouts that I have for this particular section that I'm in. Right now I'm in the client. So I have a client information one, or I could have a new one. I have a little toolbar of buttons up here. So this little piece of paper and the plus sign is my new. The pencil and paper is my edit. I can actually copy column layouts, delete them. I can add folders, so I could put these all into one folder if I wanted, and I can hide or unhide different ones. If I wanted to create a brand new one, I'm just going to click on the plus sign with the little piece of paper. I'll give it a name, and this could actually be a specific column layout for you, or you can actually show it for all users. So if I want to create one that's just mine, I might say MJ Client and call it that way, because that's what I want mine to be set up like. And maybe the paralegal or another attorney down the hallway likes to see his client view differently than what I do. He could create his own with his initials and client and just don't check the box show for all users. It would just be on his login. So if I'm a manager or if I'm somebody that wants to create these for everybody, I could just make this be like the client information one over here and show it for all users, and then they would have access to it as well. So on mine, I might want to see the client ID, the name, and maybe the description, probably something similar to what they had put in for the client information one. And maybe I want a phone and an email. And I might want to show the cell phone or something instead of the business, or whatever it is, whatever phone you want to show, whatever you want to have on here, you can do that. You have all of the client fields available to choose from here, so anything that you've created and any custom fields you've created would be on this list for you to choose to put into your layout. And I'm just going to put my email address. You can then move these columns up or down. If I wanted to change the order of these, I could do that by moving them this way. I can add and remove columns up here. And I'm just going to save that. And so now I have one called MJ Client over here that I can pick. So I'm going to go ahead and change my view. And here is my client name, work description, mobile phone, and my email address number. And I don't know what I put in there. I probably put email address number 1. But you can pick whatever fields that you want in here to see. And you can flip back and forth between them. So if you have several that you've created and you want to just kind of get a different view, you can do that. Maybe some of these only have 1 or 2 fields and you just want to flip it and go back and forth. You might want to have the primary timekeeper over here or something like that. So you can do all of those things. Now if I wanted to edit that, I'm going to go back into my Mary Jo MJ Client one, and I'm going to edit this because I don't know what I put in here. I chose email address number, and I really wanted just the email address. I did that on purpose, so I'm just going to go with that. So Manage Column Layout, I'm going to go in, and I'm going to highlight the one that I want to edit, and I'm going to click on my Edit. I'm going to remove the email address number, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to actually choose the email address column, and then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now when I go and close this and I choose the MJ Client, now I have the correct field in there. So it's that easy to change back and forth if you mess it up, or if you just want to redo it and have a different one. You can create as many of these as you want in here. And then, so this was in the client file, but I also want to show you, if you go into some different screens, so I'm going to go into the fee file here, and I'm going to show you here, there's also columns. So I could actually change and create a column layout here. Right now there's one in here that's description. Here's the default. It has all of those fields in there. So you can change that. I also could change it in the calendar. If I were underneath the calendar field, I could change this. And again, there's a lot of them in here that have already been created in my test data. Here's the default out of the box. You can even go further if I were in a time entry and I wanted to put a column layout for the transaction code, because when we come into the transaction code, you'll see all of these fields. Well, that doesn't make any sense. My description is way over here, and that might be what I'm trying to find for my, I might not know what this number or alpha code is, but I know what the description is for my T code. So I could actually create one in here, and I'm not sure if this data entry has it. It's better. It has those in here, but I might not even need all of these other things, these rates and things. I could create a column layout that just had my T code number, alpha code, and description. So it's a short and sweet little column layout that I can see the information that I want. Once I save that, then it will be available, and as long as I have that checkbox, a little check mark here, it will stay on until I turn it off. So I can log out and I can log back in and it'll still remember that I want that column layout. And that's the same on all of these screens. If I go back out of here and go back into my client screen, as long as I've had that check mark on here for this window for my description, that will stay until I turn it off. And I can uncheck it just by clicking on another one, and that will be my default until I change it again. So if you come in and it's changed and it's something that you don't want, you can always just check down here and see if your column layout got a different check mark on it. Any questions?
There are no questions, Mary Jo.
It's all yours, Paul.
Okay, and the nerd term for the day is sticky. That's called the sticky setting. There are a lot of things in STI software and PracticeMaster and Tab 3 that are sticky, meaning that when you set it one way, it stays that way until you change it to something else. So good thing to know, because a lot of times people say, well, why is this like this? I didn't used to come in and have it be this way. Well, you changed it and it's stuck. I'm going to talk about find and replace. So any place that you've got a list, just like Mary Jo said that any place that you've got a list you can change the column layout, it's also true that any place that you've got a list, you can search and replace. Now these two lists are empty, but calendar and maybe phone notes, maybe documents, maybe fees, costs. I can search and replace in any of these tabs and change one field to another or change one word to another. And all I have to know is that, and I don't know if there's another way to do it. I guess there is. I guess we could go here and click on find and replace, but I'm a keyboard guy, so I hit Control F. Oh, it's in quick clicks too, Mary Jo says. Where is it? Right there. I'm pointing to it, aren't I? It's right there. So here you've got quick clicks. I think that means you can also right click, and one of your options probably under action is going to be find and replace, or under the edit menu, find and replace, or my personal favorite, Control F, because I'm old and I was a nerd before being a nerd was cool, which means I came from an era where we didn't have mouses or mice or whatever the plural of this pointing device is. And so I'm keyboard oriented. But whatever way you get to it, this is what you're going to find. Now, a couple things to know. If you highlight some records, like if you highlight or click on State v. Williams for John Williams and then hold down Shift and click down there, you are highlighting these 6 records. Or alternatively, if you click on this one and then Control click here and here, you are highlighting those 3 records. Now the difference being that a Control click will not mark the ones in between and a Shift click will. And so when I go into find and replace, you'll notice that when I have more than one record highlighted, it defaults to doing highlighted records. But if I don't, it's going to do the whole list. So be aware that you may not want to do a find and replace on the whole list. So be aware that this is probably what you're looking for, unless you actually really do want to do the whole list. It lets you specify what you're going to search for and what you're going to replace with. So let's say that we, in several work descriptions, we spelled the word pickle wrong. So we're searching for pickle, and we want to replace with pickle. Okay? And then we have the ability to search specific fields or all fields. If you say specific fields, it'll pop up this list where you have access to every single field that is in the client file, which is what I'm looking at right now, or whatever file it is that you're searching and replacing in. You can unmark all and then specifically say that I'm looking to do this only in the work description, which I think is down here. Be careful, just clicking on it highlights it but doesn't check it. You actually have to click over here if you want to check that field. So you can select multiple fields if that's appropriate. I think in my instance I'm just going to do work description, but you could select a whole bunch of fields, you could select all fields, or you can select one field. Then we have a couple things down here. Only replace matching text is probably your best bet. Keep in mind, if you say replace entire field contents and you search for pickle and replace with pickle, and you've got the word pickle in the work description somewhere, if you say replace entire field contents and it finds this misspelled pickle anywhere in that work description, it's going to end up with a work description that merely only says pickle. So I don't think there's much play for having this replace entire field contents. It will default to this one, and then these are sticky. Well, some of them are, some of them aren't. So be careful. Make sure that you've got the right thing selected here. Match case would mean that it would only be looking for lowercase p, lowercase I, etc., whereas not saying match case would also find pickle with a capital P, or for that matter, pickle with a capital K in the middle, which of course wouldn't happen. And you can tell it to find the whole word only. So if you really only mean to replace pickle with pickle and not picklemeyer with pickle, then be careful and make sure that you tell it to find the whole word only. Now I'm going to actually get out of here, and I'm going to go over to the calendar because, yep. And I'm actually going to pull up, I'm sorry, the calendar. I believe it was Mr. Williams that we were looking at when we had this going on. He's up. Thank you. We're sorting by client number. Calendar. Now, I actually have, here's all the calendar records, and I have, oh, you changed the calendar. There we go. User lookup. There we go. I actually have 3 different people who have calendar records here, MLJ, JPP, and Ron. And I've actually set up a user list here. So we can now look at just a specific user's calendar items. Now, I'm going to actually find a different matter real quickly that has multiple calendar items. There we go. Here's one with Pam and Jen and Blank and Ron and Anderson. Let's look at this one. So if I go by user, I now see all my users down here, and when I click on a particular tab, I'm looking at only their entries. Now, we shouldn't really have Blank. And we also have somebody named, let's find somebody with multiples, Jen. Jen's gone. So let's say Jen's gone, and we want to take all her calendar items and move them to somebody else. Now, you could go into the calendar file by opening just the calendar file. Oops, open. And you could move all of Jen's calendar items, but that's not usually the case. It's not usually that one person takes over all the calendar items for another person that's left. In my experience, it's done kind of on a matter-by-matter basis. So Jen's calendar items for this matter need to go to Ron, and Jen's calendar items for that matter need to go to Pam, and et cetera, et cetera. Either way, we can get to a list of all of Jen's entries. We can do find and replace. We can say search for Jen and replace with Ron. We can either do the current list or the highlighted records because they're all the same. We only want to do specific fields, so I'm going to clear all, and then I'm going down to find user group. Yep, it is. And here we want to say only replace matching text. And that's it. We are looking for Jen in the specific field user group. We're only looking for the matching text, and instead of replacing the entire field contents. And if I hit replace all, theoretically it's going to take these 4 records and change them from Jen to Ron. Now I say theoretically because I live in a paranoid world, and so I recommend, and I think this is a good idea, that you find them first, because then you get the 4 results found and you're like, yes, there are 4, I didn't do something wrong, it didn't find 872. Then you can say replace all. And when I say replace all, it'll come through and say that 4 replacements were made, and Jen will go away. And if we look at Ron, he will have all of Jen's records. Okay? Now I could then go into Blank, for instance, and do the same thing and change them to Ron or Jen, because I don't even know why we have a blank entry. But keep in mind, if you just have 1 record, you can also just as easily go in here and change that. So this find and replace is extremely useful when you're looking to replace all of a certain group of records with one thing that is currently another thing. You can change words this way. You can change users this way. You can change completed, incomplete to complete tasks this way. There are certain things you can't do. If we wanted to look for all of the calendar items, regardless of what user, that had a certain date, it won't let us do that. I can highlight the whole thing. I can do find and replace. And if I try to do the specific field due date, it won't let us change it this way. So there are a couple things that it won't let you change, just so you know, and due date is one of those. And keep in mind, this works anywhere. So if we entered a whole bunch of fees, and obviously there are no fees for this client, but let's say this client, and we entered the wrong timekeeper. Maybe it was, well, my fees isn't a good example. Maybe it was this entry, and this entry had the wrong timekeeper. We could change the timekeepers. Or if somebody created a whole bunch of notes, but they created them when they were logged into somebody else's computer by mistake, logged into their PracticeMaster, you could change the note and the user that created it. Anything that's here virtually can be changed with find and replace. And keep in mind, we're looking at things right now in a client-oriented view. There's John Williams, there's Peterson Insurance, there's Philip Marcus. So when I look at calendar, I'm only looking at calendar for Marcus Phillips. I can also open files without regard for matter. So for instance, if I did open the calendar file and did go specifically to by user and chose Jen, it is possible for me to reassign all of Jen's calendar items to Ron or Pam or MLJ right here without having to worry about doing it case by case. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's also possible. Questions?
No questions, Paul.
Awesome. Anything to add, Mary Jo? Nope. Okay, I guess I must be doing all right. Next month, we are going to talk about eNote and eNotify, which is, I must point out, is a platinum feature, but it's very cool. It's part of PracticeMaster, and it's kind of like instant messaging on steroids specific to case management. So it lets you send things or notes to people and get instant responses, and they're tracked and they can be assigned to Mary Jo's going to tell you all there is to know about that. And I'm going to talk about workflows. We've talked about workflows before, but we have a lot of experience under our belt now. We've done a lot of work for certain clients specific to workflows, and so we're going to share some of that and share some practical applications for workflows. I'll also let you know, just in case you're interested, that next month in TAB's virtual user group meeting, we're talking about flat fee billing. Mary Jo will tell you how that works and also show you how it's improved in version 17. And I'm going to talk about adding a new bank account in the trust accounting software. Now keep in mind that you can always go to our website, which is www.attorneycomputersystems.com, attorneycomputersystems.com, just like it is there. And once you get there, you have the ability to see all three of our virtual user group meetings. By scrolling down, we have tabs, PracticeMaster, and World Docs. And when you go, for instance, to the PracticeMaster virtual user group meeting page, you'll be able to see what's coming up next. This is the one we're talking about right now. Be able to register for it. Of course, you wouldn't do that now. It's over. And if you scroll down, you'll see recorded versions of all the prior virtual user group meetings in that particular topic that we've ever recorded. And we've been doing the recordings for about 3 years now, so there's a lot of content there. We also have our monthly coffee pot webinars, Mary Jo's eBite video series, which is short 3-4 minute videos on a very, very specific topic, and our larger format TV show type format, Paul and Mary Jo Show, where we actually take usually a broader topic and go into great, great detail in it. So all this content's available to you. Feel free to take advantage of it. Everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, a good month, and a happy 4th of July. We'll see you after the 4th later on in July. Thanks much. Bye-bye.